Hey guys, Dailey here, and today I am talking about showing versus telling. I want to talk about what showing and telling both are, when best to use both, and some quick fixes to help you check your own writing. Showing is about using descriptive words to help the reader become fully immersed and invested in your story, whereas telling delivers facts. It's about using exposition and summarizing to quickly deliver information. First, I wanted to give you guys some examples so you can kind of get the idea of what telling versus showing looks like. For telling, it was a hot afternoon. For showing, Jeremy wiped the sweat from his brow, the sun beating down at the noonday hour. Telling, Susie was excited about the new shoes. Showing, Susie lifted the lid off the box, breathing in the fresh leather and running her fingers down the white laces. She grinned and clapped her hands, flying down the hall to show her new sneakers to her sister. Telling, Billy is afraid of the dark. Showing, as Billy's mother wished him good night and clicked off the light, he tensed, his heart racing. Sweat beaded on his forehead as the weight of the sudden darkness pressed him into his sheets. Showing makes for more engaging reading, and it demonstrates trust in your readers that they can piece together all of the information that you've laid out. It allows them to discern the setting, emotion, and moods from the scene. It's easy for writers to dip into telling because that's how we talk to each other as humans. I went down to the store and saw Susie. She said she saw Mike at the meeting. When we divulge stories to our groups of friends, we tell them what happened. So it's easy to sit there when we're writing and tell what's happening in the story. Douglas Adams in Hitchhiker's Guide talks about this very thing when his lovable alien Ford comes down and observes that human beings have a peculiar habit of continually stating and restating the very, very obvious. As in, it's a nice day, or you're very tall, or oh dear, you seem to have fallen down a 30-foot well. Are you all right? How to show, not tell. When you're writing a showing scene, think about these three things to help you fully render that scene out. 1. Your senses. When showing, utilize all senses available to you. Not just what the character sees, but what they smell, hear, taste, and feel. All of these things can help immerse an audience in the scene. 2. Actions. Think about the way that people are moving through a description. What are they doing that can help show what you're describing? If a character is shivering and pulling up their scarf tighter, it's fairly obvious that you're saying it's cold. Consider using body language in conversations to show what the other characters are feeling. Even if your main character is clueless and isn't going to pick up on those subtle signals, the reader will. Number 3, feelings. What is a character feeling during a scene? Describing those feelings will help bring a reader in closer to that character. Looking out at an ocean can bring up all sorts of emotions: isolation, fear, excitement. And how is your reader going to become invested in your character if you don't explain those things? When you're writing scenes about feelings, sad, angry, anxious, gleeful, think about words that describe those feelings, whether it's the character whose head you're in or someone that they're observing. What do you see when you look at someone who's sad? What actions are they making? How are they portraying that emotion? Write those things instead of simply saying that they're sad. I know this gets more complex when you have more complex emotions, and I highly suggest picking up the emotional thesaurus if you have trouble describing what a feeling looks like on a character. But you have to trust your reader that they're going to pick out all of the subtle clues that you are laying for them. As writers, we get told, show, don't tell, all the time. That's because we need to remind our brains constantly not to tell. But the reality is, showing isn't always the best choice in writing. Showing slows down moments. It takes up more words and more effort on the writer's part. And it also takes up more time and energy on the reader's part. Showing is a writer's way of saying, pay attention to this. It's important. I'm slowing down the scene so you can really feel it. It invests readers in that scene because it's important. Telling, on the other hand, quickly gives the reader the information they need without all the bells and whistles. Your reader doesn't need to be invested the entire time. The more important the scene is to your character, the more you should be showing. Not every moment is the most important moment of your life, just like Not every moment in your book is the most important moment of the book. Also, the reader needs to take a break. If you painted out every scene beautifully rendered in detail in a book, the reader would be exhausted. In the same way that you write long paragraphs and sentences, then give your readers a break with short paragraphs and sentences to give their brain a little rest so that they're ready for that next long paragraph or sentence you have, you're going to be doing the same thing with showing versus telling. It's a balance game. But when it comes to showing versus telling, there are best times to use both. Here are 8 times when it's best to show. 1. When it's important. If a scene, item, or person is important to your main character, you're going to want to take the time to render that out. Additionally, if it's vital to the story or plot, even if your character doesn't know this yet, you're going to want to show that as well. Number 2, feelings. If there's a big emotional response, especially in an important scene, like a breakup or a first kiss or a death, you have to paint out those feelings. Number 3, an attitude or personality trait. If a character is mean, show them being mean to something. If they're kind, have them picking up something that someone else dropped. If they're a germaphobe or a clean freak, show them dusting something off or refusing to shake hands with someone. Number 4, special skills or abilities. Have a scene demonstrating their skill or ability without outright saying what it is. Are they telekinetic? Throw some plates around. Good with guns? Demonstrate that knowledge. You don't always have to show a scene demonstrating an action either. Sure, you can show a fighter fighting, or you can show them with a certain kind of fighter stance, or maybe they baby their belt, like a sword usually hangs there. Number 5, a character's status. When I say this, I mean your character's status in comparison to the people around them. If they're a CEO to a company, they might act differently to the people around them in comparison to a beggar on the streets. Show their feelings of dominance or submission. Number 6, tension. Showing was made for tension and suspense. Clocks ticking, a shadow creeping across the ground, a chill in the air. Number 7, an altered situation. When a scene takes a turn from where it was originally going or there's a plot twist, those scenes should be more carefully rendered and shown. Number 8, setting. When you need to paint a big picture and setting, especially if the setting is important to your character or plot, or if you're going to need to return to that setting multiple times. 8 times on when to use telling. Number 1, when it's not important. If the moment isn't vital, doesn't further the plot, or isn't important to the character at all, just tell it like it is. Number 2, when you're repeating a description. What I mean by that is when you're repeating descriptions that you've already fully rendered out and shown. If you've already heavily showed what a location, person, or thing looks like, there's no reason to do it a second time. This is where you take a few quick primary details from your sensory description and mention them briefly. Her hair might have flowed in golden waves the first time, but the second time you see her, she's just the blonde girl. Number 3, internal narrative. This doesn't need to be painted out. Things can be stated simply in a character's head because it allows the reader to figure out what makes the character tick and how they're viewing the situation they're in. It's literally your character interpreting the scene you just showed. Number 4, desires and intentions. It's better to outright state what a character wants or why he's in a scene. Number 5, that's 10. Number 5, transitions. If you're going from a fully rendered scene at a hospital to crying in your neighbor's arms, there's no reason to show the car ride home. Just tell us they drove home. You've rendered something, give us a break with a drive, and then render again once you get to the neighbor's house. Basically, any progression of events that don't change the character's attitude, status, or situation. Number 6, high tension scenes. If you've reached a high tension scene, then you've already done your job showing your way into it. This is the end of the tension and suspense we were talking about in the showing section. This is where it all changes. And these are things that you can tell. But of course, situation probably dictates on this one. Number 7, a quick fact. When you need to deliver a quick, heavy, or important fact that may very well slap your character across the face, that's when you're just gonna tell it like it is. He died 30 years ago. I'm your mother. Or, Star Wars fans, I'm your father. The letter arrived. Again, these work best if you've set up rendered scenes so that this quick telling sentence can deliver the impact that it deserves. And you won't be able to do this all the time. If you have a bunch of short little factoid sentences, they're going to lose their punch. Number 8, the stakes. When you're noting the stakes of a scene. If he doesn't run into that burning building, the whole family will die. It's a lot better if you just say it like it is. When you could do either, show or tell. There are some situations where you could do either, and context will dictate in your story, but generally, decisions. This kind of goes along with that internal monologue. You can quickly state a character's decisions, or you can paint out his options. Or you can mix the two together, paint out the options, and then quickly state what his decision is. Desires. A character's goal or intention in the scene. Again, you can quickly say what a character wants, or you can paint it out. He wanted to run in the race. Versus, the runners raced across the TV screen, cutting through the final ribbon. His legs ached, his heart pounded, he could do that. Alright, there's a little telling there at the end, but you get the idea. But in both cases, decisions and desires, if you do choose to show, do so briefly, so as not to bog down the scene. Also, action scenes. Action scenes are about balance. You don't want to show the entire time because it'll slow down the scene and cut the tension. But you don't want to tell the entire time either because then it'll start to feel really boring. This is where both tactics, especially quick showing moments, will come in handy. He jogged to the corner of the street, but a towering shadow of a man stopped him. His beefy hand gripped his collar, and the dagger plunged into his ribs. How to find sentences where you're telling. One of the toughest parts is noticing where you're telling in your story. Here are some tips on what to look out for and some quick fixes. You want to take the sentence and describe the things inside of it. You should never have to outright state something, except in those 8 telling scenes that we talked about. So, your readers are going to pick up on what's going on if you describe the scene. Why? Because we do this in life all the time. We don't have someone there to tell us that our friend is sad. We pick up on the subtle, or sometimes not so subtle, clues that tell that to us. Like when she's pouting on a couch, or avoiding us, or outright crying. Or maybe she's eating ice cream, which is something we know she does when she's sad. That's what you're doing when you're showing. You're laying down the clues so that your reader interprets them. You're going to want to keep an eye out for was and were. These are often signs of telling. The house was quiet. The key thing in that sentence is that pesky word was. Anything that surrounds the word was is what you're going to describe. Use words to describe what quiet is. What sensations is the character feeling in the scene? And what does the room of the house look like? Also, use strong verbs. Instead of saying the word walk, use words that describe the walk. Saunter, amble, skip, stroll. Look for adverbs. If you write, he walked quickly, the presence of that adverb shows that your verb choice isn't strong enough. You can instead say rushed, dashed, scampered, hurried, or hurdled. Also, use dialogue instead of narrative. Instead of, James was angry, say, "Don't you walk away from me," James yelled. If you can't use dialogue, at least describe what anger looks like. How does she know he's angry? Is his face turning red, his teeth clenched, his hands balled into fists, or is he actively avoiding her, giving her the silent treatment? How does she know he's angry? What looks like anger on this character? In the end, remember this. Every showing scene needs to be significant and important. The emotions should be obvious without being outright stated, and the character's intentions should be clear. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope this gives you a better idea on what show versus tell is and when best to use either of those. This is your last chance to see people. You want to come up? Right there, yeah. Jealous. Jealous boy. He's a jealous boy. Hi. Got no toys this time. I didn't bring any toys. Yeah. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. I will see you guys next time. Bye.